Courtney was 2:11 a.m. The phone location to her mom was 2:18, 7 minutes. She screamed. Things happened. She was able to know she was in enough danger that she needed to send her mother her location.
If someone were stabbing a person 60 times, we would expect them to try to get away. But what if they can't? What if they can't because their right hand is chained to their right leg, their left leg chained to their right elbow? Makes it difficult to run. Makes it difficult to do anything.
Welcome back to Crime Delve. My name is Luca. Today, we're covering the case that shocked Chattanooga. A case where the killer's entire web of lies was eventually exposed by security cameras, phone data, and digital evidence he thought he had erased for good. Hi there, we're introducing a new feature where I can read this aloud in a natural, human-like voice. Now then, let's get into it.
Jasmine Nicole Pace, or as her family always called her, Jazzy. She was 22 years old. Living in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a quiet city tucked against the Appalachian Mountains, where people tend to believe horrific things only happen on Netflix, not in the apartment complex across the street. Jasmine was a petite young woman, standing around 5 feet 3 inches tall and weighing less than 100 pounds. Black hair, brown eyes, distinctive tattoos across her body. At the end of 2022, she was a college student in Tennessee. Her family described Jasmine as an old soul, someone far wiser and more mature than her age. She was independent, dependable, and always the first person to show up when someone needed help. The kind of person where if you texted her, "I'm fine," at 3 a.m., she would immediately know you were absolutely not fine. Jasmine was raised by her mother, Katrina Pace, later Katrina Bean, alongside her stepfather Scott Bean and her siblings Gabby, Enoch, and Adan. According to her family at Lane Funeral Home, Jasmine had a smile that could light up an entire room. On the night of November 22nd, 2022, just hours before Thanksgiving, Jasmine Pace left her mother's home in Chattanooga shortly before 11:30 p.m., driving away into the darkness in her familiar white Chevy Equinox. At the time, nobody knew that the family's security camera had just captured the last known footage of Jasmine alive. The next day, her mother, Katrina Pace, received a text message from Jasmine's phone. The message said she would be staying at a friend named Emma's house for the rest of Thanksgiving week. At first glance, it sounded completely normal. Jasmine's family had just gone through the devastating loss of a close grandmother to cancer, and during that period, Jasmine would sometimes isolate herself for a few days to process her emotions. She needed space. Her family understood that, so in the beginning, nobody immediately thought the worst, until a new post appeared on Jasmine's Facebook page. "Enjoying Thanksgiving with my babe" sounded normal enough. Almost too normal. But then Katrina took a closer look at the photo attached to the post. And it wasn't just because the outfit Jasmine was wearing looked completely different from how her daughter normally presented herself online. Jasmine was not the kind of person who usually posted openly provocative photos like that. It felt off. But the detail that truly sent chills through the family was something much smaller. The tattoos. Jasmine's father, Travis Pace, immediately realized that the tattoos on his daughter's right arm had completely disappeared. And for Jasmine, those tattoos were almost like a living timeline. She had gotten them over the course of months, even years. They could not simply vanish overnight after Thanksgiving. In other words, this was not a recent photo. Someone had taken an old picture of Jasmine and posted it on her Facebook account to make people believe she was still okay. Yeah. And that is usually the moment in a missing person case when everything starts moving into extremely dark territory. Because at that point, Jasmine's family began realizing something terrifying. If Jasmine was not the person making those posts, then who was holding her phone? By then, Katrina Pace knew one thing for certain. Someone was lying through her daughter's phone, because after calling Emma, the friend Jasmine was supposedly staying with during Thanksgiving break, Katrina was told that Jasmine was not there, and Emma had absolutely no idea why her name was being mentioned in those messages. That was the moment everything started to feel wrong in a very true crime kind of way. Because at the same time, several of Jasmine's friends and family members also started receiving text messages from her number. And the messages were almost identical every single time. Jasmine wanted to be alone. Jasmine needed space. Jasmine would reach out later. It sounded reasonable enough if you had never actually known Jasmine in real life. But her family knew her very well. Jasmine might isolate herself when she was upset. She might turn off her phone for a few hours. But she would not disappear from the world for days and communicate only through cold little text messages like some NPC from a side quest in a video game. And the most disturbing part? Nobody actually heard her voice. No FaceTime calls. No voice messages. Nothing that could truly prove Jasmine was still the one using that phone. So now, the family started considering the possibility nobody wanted to think about. That maybe Jasmine was no longer the person sending those texts. The family immediately organized their own search efforts. Her mother, Katrina, tried something herself. She logged into the My Chevrolet app connected directly to Jasmine's vehicle, while also checking shared location data through friends on Snapchat. The GPS signal from the vehicle system and the app led her straight to an upscale condo complex near Mountain Creek Road in Chattanooga. Signal View Condos. Jasmine's SUV was parked there, alone. By then, it was around 8:30 p.m. on November 26th. 4 days had passed since Jasmine was last seen leaving her mother's house during Thanksgiving week. And this is where things became deeply unsettling. The family did not know anyone connected to Signal View Condos. No friends, no relatives, no reason at all for her vehicle to be there. As they approached the Equinox, Katrina and Travis noticed that the driver's seat had been pushed far back, much farther than where Jasmine normally kept it. Jasmine was only around 5'2" tall. The last person who drove that vehicle was almost certainly much taller than she was. Yeah, at that point, this was no longer their daughter needing some space. That was the moment Jasmine's family realized they might be standing right in the opening scene of a homicide investigation. And then, the 911 call was made. Jasmine Pace was officially reported missing.
We want her home and we want her safe.
Bailey Putman is doing anything she can to try to bring her childhood friend home. Jasmine Pace hasn't been seen since November 22nd. Chattanooga police are investigating the case as a missing person.
Her mom has not an ounce of sleep. I don't think she is 8.
Jasmine was last seen here on surveillance video leaving her mom's house. They believe she was trying to leave town to grieve a recent death in the family, but they knew something went wrong when she didn't show up to Thanksgiving dinner.
And that is so very unlike her. There's not a day that they don't hear from Jasmine, let alone an hour.
At 2:18 in the morning, out of the blue, Jasmine shared her location with her mom via text message. She was at an apartment complex in Chattanooga's North Shore.
She knows that sending that, her mom would understand what that was meant by.
Police say she may have turned to a boyfriend she met several months ago on a dating app to help her grieve. They believe she may be with that boyfriend. Jasmine's mom found her car miles from where her location was shared at this apartment complex on Mountain Creek Road. Her family isn't aware of any connection she has with the complex.
Her phone has not been active since Tuesday. Her social medias have, but not on the device of her phone.
Putman is referring to a Facebook post including these videos. They were posted to her account on Sunday, but look closely at this photo. Her family says they know this picture is several years old because now she has tattoos on her right shoulder and upper arm.
So you don't think that she actually made that Facebook post?
No.
The videos also show this friend. Her mom says she got a text from Jasmine's phone last week saying she was going to see the friend in South Carolina, but that friend told family she had no plans for Jasmine to visit and that she actually lives in Kentucky.
Our main goal is to find Jasmine in case we have belief she is in Chattanooga.
Now take another good hard look at your screen. Jasmine is about 5 feet tall. She also has light skin, long dark hair as well, and she also has brown eyes. And as I mentioned, also she has several tattoos on her right arm and shoulder. Anyone with information on where Jasmine may be is asked to call the Chattanooga Police Department, and you can find that number inside the Local 3 News app.
Our main concern is Jasmine and where she is at. We will not stop until we find her.
At this point, Katrina Pace had basically gone into survival mode. While police were still viewing the situation as a possible case of an adult choosing to disappear, Jasmine's mother started doing what so many families in true crime cases eventually end up having to do themselves: investigate on her own. Jasmine was still on the family phone plan, which meant Katrina could access her daughter's call logs. And when she pulled up the full communication history, one detail immediately stood out. There had been no outgoing phone calls from Jasmine's phone in days, which was weird, because even though someone was clearly texting from her phone, almost all the activity was limited to text messages. No FaceTime, no actual phone calls, nothing that would require someone to physically speak using Jasmine's voice. Katrina started calling every number that appeared in the call logs, one by one, right in front of the police. And then she noticed one specific number. A phone call lasting more than 70 minutes on the night of November 22nd, the same night Jasmine disappeared. Katrina called the number. The person on the other end was a young man named Chen. Based on what the family knew at the time, Jason was a computer science student at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Jasmine had met him through Bumble, and the two had been dating for a few months. But the relationship had never become serious enough for Jason to meet her family. In other words, this was almost the first time Katrina and Travis had ever heard the name Jason Chen. Problem is, Katrina was holding the call logs in her hands. She knew very well that final conversation had lasted more than an hour, 71 minutes.
He just lied, said that he hadn't talked to her. He talked to her for a few minutes Monday when she was with me at the bank. He talked to her for 71 minutes. He would remember that. He talked to her for over an hour, and he just lied.
There was one thing Katrina Pace could never forget about that phone call with Jason Chen. Not just because he lied about the 71-minute call, but because he barely seemed to care. His girlfriend had been missing for days. Her family was panicking. Police were beginning to get involved. And Jason's reaction? Flat, cold, almost completely detached from the entire situation. It was the kind of reaction that instinctively makes people uneasy. Not enough to accuse someone of anything, but enough to make a mother think, there's something wrong with this guy. Katrina started begging police to do more. Check the phone records, track the signals, question Jason more thoroughly. But at that point, Jasmine was still officially being treated as an adult who had voluntarily disappeared. There was no obvious crime scene, no body, no direct evidence of violence. So after taking down information and exchanging contact details, police left, leaving two desperate parents to figure things out on their own. And honestly, this is one of the most frustrating parts of so many missing person cases. Because sometimes the family knows something horrible is happening long before the system catches up. Katrina and Travis decided to keep investigating themselves. They started knocking on doors throughout Signal View condos, asking residents if anyone had seen Jasmine. Nobody had. But then, a security guard agreed to help them review the condo complex surveillance footage. And that was the moment the story shifted from concerning to absolutely terrifying. Using the timestamp data from the My Chevrolet app, they narrowed down the footage to the evening of November 23rd. The cameras captured Jasmine's white Chevy Equinox entering the parking lot shortly after 8:30 p.m. The SUV drove directly into the exact area where it would later be found abandoned. But the video quality was far too poor to identify the driver. Only one thing was absolutely clear. Jasmine's car made it there. Whether Jasmine herself did was a completely different question. And then, in the middle of all the chaos, Katrina Pace discovered one final message sent from her daughter's phone. There were no words at all, just a pinned location, sent at 2:18 a.m. on November 23rd. And honestly, that's terrifying, because Jasmine had never done something like that before. She would not randomly send her mother coordinates in the middle of the night without saying a single word. No, I'm okay. No, don't worry. Nothing. Just a location pin. And in hindsight, it felt far more like a distress signal than a normal message. The following day, after feeling like their concerns still were not being taken seriously enough by police, Katrina and Travis decided to personally go to the pinned location themselves. 110 Tremont Street, an apartment complex not far from downtown Chattanooga. And this is where the case truly started entering extremely dark territory. Once again, the two of them began knocking on doors throughout the building, asking if anyone had seen Jasmine. Most apartments had someone answer, except for Unit 210. That apartment was completely silent. Then, neighbors started describing what they had heard during the early morning hours of November 23rd. Almost exactly around the same time the pinned location message had been sent. Loud noises, running. Some kind of chaos coming from Unit 210. Each neighbor remembered it a little differently, but all of them pointed toward the same feeling. Something very bad happened in there. And then, somehow, Katrina and Travis managed to get inside that apartment. Right behind the front door was a small notebook listing the tenant's name, Jason Chen. Yeah, the apartment was so small that almost the entire space was visible the moment you walked in. An open layout. The kitchen connected directly to the living room. A short hallway leading to the only bedroom, with a bathroom and stacked washer-dryer nearby. The kind of apartment where, if something happened inside, almost everything would leave traces behind. And just seconds after entering, Katrina spotted Jasmine's travel bag. It was sitting right there on the kitchen counter. Cleaning supplies had been left out in the open near the desk area, not in a clean apartment kind of way. More in a way that immediately made you think, okay, somebody cleaned something. Then Travis noticed something even worse. Jasmine's driver's license, her bank cards, all still inside the apartment. And that was the moment normal logic completely fell apart. Because a 22-year-old woman does not voluntarily disappear for days while leaving behind her ID, credit cards, and vehicle. That is not taking some space. That is the sign of someone who never truly had the chance to leave. The family immediately called Chattanooga police back to the scene. Officers arrived. They spoke with Katrina, asked neighbors a few questions, documented the information. And then they left again. And honestly, you could feel the family's desperation at this point turning into outright panic. Because in their minds, everything was screaming that something terrible had happened inside that apartment. But they still felt like they were being left alone to investigate their own daughter's disappearance. So Katrina kept doing what she believed any mother would do. She went back to the apartment, multiple times. She took anything that might contain answers: notebooks, phones, electronic devices, cameras, iPads. Anything that could help figure out where Jasmine was. Meanwhile, Travis and the others started checking the large dumpsters outside the building. It was not until nearly midnight that Chattanooga police finally returned to 110 Tremont Street with an official search warrant. And within the very first walkthrough, the apartment started telling its own story. Investigators documented what appeared to be bloodstains on the hardwood living room floor, in the bathroom, on the bedroom carpet. There were also small spatter marks visible on the bathroom walls and door area. Then there was something else that immediately caught attention: cleaning supplies. A lot of cleaning supplies. Far too many for a college student apartment. And the trash bags? Completely emptied out.
Cell phone records are some of the most common records police use to find criminals. A search warrant for location tracking, text messages, and phone calls can give them everything they need and more to close a case.
The more prevalent that technology such as cell phones and things like that have become, the more these are tools that the police department can use in their investigations.
Jamie Heath is the assistant chief at the Collegedale Police Department.
Apple, Android, so many of them already have location services built in. And it's just a simple fact of having that stuff turned on, kept on.
Police say Jasmine Pace sent her location via text message to her mom the night she went missing. That led police to Jason Chen's apartment, where they found glass fragments, cleaning supplies, and blood they determined was Jasmine's. That alone gave police probable cause to charge Chen with homicide. It was invaluable information that would have made investigators' job much harder had Jasmine not sent her location to her mom.
Clearly she thought that she was in danger. It definitely would have made the process longer.
All cell phone companies have built-in security features. On iPhones, if you press the lock button 5 times, you immediately call police and also send your location to all of your emergency contacts. The same thing for Androids. And you can also update your settings to give trusted sources access to your phone's passwords, which could save police critical time in case you find yourself in an emergency. Those cell phone settings can get yourself ahead of a potential crime. Keeping the settings updated saves police time in the critical early stages of an investigation.
And everybody's got a cell phone these days. It's wherever you go, your phone's there with you. So, dropping pins occasionally, just like, Miss Pace did, that kind of stuff. We've got the technology in their hands. Use it.
And now, the apartment truly started telling the story of what had happened there. Police searched the dumpsters outside the building and found 2 pairs of white sneakers along with a pair of blue pants that had been thrown away. The items were immediately collected as evidence. And honestly, people do not throw away clothes in a dumpster during Thanksgiving week unless there is a very bad reason behind it. Inside the apartment, investigators continued noticing more and more disturbing details. Broken glass in the living room. Furniture moved out of its original position. Large indentations in the bedroom carpet, the kind of marks showing that heavy furniture had sat there for a long time and had only recently been dragged somewhere else. And directly underneath that area, a large stain. Investigators believed someone had rearranged the entire room to hide whatever had once been underneath the bed. Then they noticed a kitchen knife sitting on top of the bed. And by this point, nearly every room in the apartment was beginning to show possible traces of blood. The living room, the bedroom, the bathroom, everywhere. The forensic team was called to the scene. They began using Blue Star, a chemical agent designed to detect blood that had been cleaned or was no longer visible to the naked eye. And then, the hallway lit up. Jasmine Pace's missing person case officially became a homicide investigation. But there was still one horrifying question left unanswered. If Jasmine had been killed there, where was she? That was when detectives started reconstructing Jason Chen's movements using surveillance footage from around the apartment complex and throughout Chattanooga. And the more footage they reviewed, the worse the story became. By now, investigators were finally beginning to piece together the real timeline of the night Jasmine disappeared. Security footage confirmed that Jasmine arrived at 110 Tremont Street before midnight on November 22nd. Her white Chevy Equinox was captured turning into the apartment parking lot. That was the last moment investigators could confidently say Jasmine was still alive. After that, Jasmine disappeared from every piece of footage, but her vehicle did not. The following evening, around 8:30 p.m., cameras captured the Chevy leaving Jason Chen's apartment complex. The driver was wearing a light-colored hoodie. The footage continued tracking the vehicle all the way to Signal View condos, where her family would later find it abandoned. And honestly, the more investigators studied this timeline, the more it felt like Jason was not searching for Jasmine. It looked like he was trying to erase her. After leaving the Chevy at Signal View, the person in the light-colored hoodie was recorded getting into a dark-colored Prius, believed to be a rideshare or taxi. That vehicle then transported the person back toward Jason Chen's apartment complex. But investigators soon uncovered something even worse. A Ring camera near the parking garage exit captured Jason Chen entering and leaving the building multiple times throughout November 23rd. And at 8:27 p.m., the camera recorded Jason leaving the building. 3 minutes later, Jasmine's Chevy appeared at Signal View condos. Then investigators continued digging deeper into Jason's movements throughout Thanksgiving week. And honestly, the more they reconstructed the timeline, the worse it became. On the morning of November 23rd, Jason showed up alone at Walmart. Surveillance cameras captured him buying the kind of items you really do not want to see in the timeline of a homicide case: bandages, hydrogen peroxide, and a large amount of cleaning supplies. But then Jason did something unbelievably stupid. While using the self-checkout lane, overhead security cameras recorded a level of cheapness that was honestly ridiculous. Jason picked up an electric heated blanket worth more than $40, then intentionally scanned it as asparagus so he would only pay a few bucks instead. Just think about that for a second. A guy who had allegedly just killed his girlfriend was shopping for cleanup supplies, while casually shoplifting a small item at Walmart like absolutely nothing had happened. But ironically, those Walmart cameras ended up helping investigators in another way too. Footage from the overhead cameras clearly showed the white sneakers Jason was wearing, and they looked identical to the shoes later recovered from the dumpster outside the apartment complex. After Walmart, Jason stopped at Walgreens to buy paper towels. Because at some point between that morning cleaning supply run and the later footage showing Jason repeatedly entering and leaving the apartment, Jasmine Pace disappeared from the building, and investigators believed that during that time, Jason found a way to remove her body while also disposing of clothing and other items that could contain evidence. As detectives continued piecing together surveillance footage across Chattanooga, one detail kept helping them track Jason: the white hoodie. It was bright and easy to identify, even in dark or blurry footage. And then, around 6 p.m. on November 23rd, that hoodie appeared again. Security cameras captured someone struggling to drag a large suitcase out of the building toward the parking lot. A suitcase so large that just looking at it made people uneasy. Moments later, Jason Chen's black Toyota Camry left the apartment complex. And then, after days of surveillance footage, fake text messages, and suspicious trips around Chattanooga, Jason Chen was finally located. On November 29th, 2022, exactly 1 week after Jasmine was last seen alive, police tracked Jason down at his parents' home in Nolensville, Tennessee. Officers noticed multiple cuts and scratches on his right hand and leg.
He's gonna pat you down. He's gonna place some handcuffs. Not place you in arrest. You just call us and you go to the back of the car. So you're gonna put the handcuffs. Good.
Okay. So you said it was a search warrant.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah, there's search warrant for your person, so we're, Knoxville Police Department, we're going to be connecting you in the flashing the search warrant. We're assisting Chattanooga.
Okay. And is there any like calls or anything?
Yeah, they're going to explain. That's a big one. Yeah. We're going to let them do that, but I don't want to speak for them. Yeah, we don't want to misinform you of anything, so they'll tell you all that when we get down there. So just take it from them. They're the lead on this. We'll let them explain it because we don't want to pile on information. We'll let them one time it all down. Okay. All right, so if you will, just face away from me. Do you have anything ready for me?
A search warrant was executed at Jason Chen's parents' house in Nolensville. Inside Jason's room, investigators found a black backpack along with multiple handwritten notes. Jason wrote that Jasmine had run away before, that she had once been homeless, that she had issues with an ex-boyfriend. In other words, he was trying to build an image of Jasmine as the kind of person who could disappear at any moment, which is very convenient when your girlfriend is missing. But the worst thing was inside the backpack. Inside a glasses case, police found Jasmine's SIM card. When investigators searched Jason's phone, they discovered a photo of Jasmine standing in the bathroom of his apartment on the night she disappeared. They also found numerous screenshots of text conversations. But the strange part was, the original messages had been deleted. Then investigators uncovered another detail that caused the entire story around Jason Chen to begin collapsing. The Thanksgiving with My Babe photo posted on Jasmine's Facebook account had been uploaded at 11:41 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day. When digital forensic specialists extracted the metadata from the image, they discovered it had actually been taken back in July 2021 at a hotel in Atlanta, more than a year earlier. Jason Chen had gone digging through old photos to stage a fake social media narrative. Someone had deliberately used an old picture to pretend Jasmine was still alive. And honestly, that is not something people do in panic. That is staging. Even though Walmart surveillance footage showed Jason shopping alone on the morning of November 23rd, Jasmine's phone traveled with him during the entire trip. Meaning, Jasmine never appeared on camera, but her phone remained beside Jason. And that is incredibly bad. Then investigators continued tracking the phone data after the moment Jason was captured on camera dragging the large suitcase to his Camry. The phone signal led them to Suck Creek Road, a road running along the river outside Chattanooga. Quiet, remote, and honestly, exactly the kind of place detectives hate seeing in a homicide investigation. On December 1st, 2022, investigators searched the riverbank area near Suck Creek Road, the same location Jason Chen's phone data had led them to after the suitcase trip. And then they found the suitcase. The same suitcase security cameras had previously captured Jason dragging out of the Tremont Street apartment complex. And, yeah, inside was Jasmine Pace.
Until we find her. Any information that anybody has on the location, the whereabouts of Jasmine Pace, please contact the Chattanooga Police Department.
Hamilton County's District Attorney Cody Womp told the Pace family and community officials are working day in and day out to solve Jasmine Pace's disappearance. On December 1st at 1:30 p.m., the Chattanooga Police Department confirmed they found the remains of Jasmine Pace.
Jasmine's body had been wrapped in 3 layers of trash bags and restrained with 2 pairs of standard handcuffs. Her right wrist was cuffed to her right ankle, while her left ankle was secured to her right elbow, forcing her body into a folded position small enough to fit inside the suitcase. One of the handcuffs had even snapped at the connecting chain. The autopsy determined that Jasmine suffered a horrifying total of 64 sharp force injuries. Most of the wounds were concentrated on the upper left side of her body, and investigators documented numerous defensive wounds covering her left hand and arm. Even more disturbing, part of a broken knife blade was found embedded in her head due to the sheer force of the attack, which is just horrific. And by this point, everything Jasmine's family had feared throughout that entire week had become reality. According to her sister Gabby, Jasmine often talked about how badly she wanted to become a mother someday. She was extremely close with her two nieces and served as godmother to a little boy named Waylon.
Tonight I heard from classmates, friends, and family who say no matter who you were, Jasmine was someone who would give the shirt off her back to help someone. They say her infectious smile and spirit will never be forgotten.
But even from the very beginning, you could see who she was becoming.
All of us are family because we love her and we want to honor her.
Heartfelt words from those who knew Jasmine Pace the most. Friends and family gathered in Coolidge Park to share moments that made her life memorable.
And probably every day of her life, she was hugging on somebody and hugging on some family.
Tragedy ended her life too soon, but loved ones felt it was important to give the world a glimpse of the life she lived.
There was a moment when you're with her, you realized how clever, how smart, how brilliant she was.
Her father, Travis Pace, says she lived life with a passion, never afraid to go after the things she wanted.
Honor her and celebrate tonight to hear laughter.
Just knowing how many lives that she touched and them spreading the word on my sister, I think it also touched other people's hearts that have probably gone through a situation like this.
Friends say she was the person you called no matter what time of day it was. They say she was always there.
I've known her my entire life, and I've never seen her burn a bridge or have ends with someone badly.
Pace had many talents. She could sing and dance. They say her personality was so magnetic, people couldn't help but gravitate towards her.
She just always made it a point to know, for you to know, that she was thinking of you and that she loved you. She was fierce over her family. She was fierce over her friends.
Everyone that loves her very, very much.
Her family and friends say she had a heart of gold, and they will forever hold close memories of her.
Even if she's gone, her light continues through us to finish her job, to keep making it a bright place.
In December 2022, a Tennessee judge set Jason Chen's bond at $5 million. And as details of the case began emerging in the media, a lot of people immediately started asking the same question. How is this guy even being offered bail? Because by that point, police had reconstructed almost the entire timeline following Jasmine's killing. Investigators believed Jason had not only murdered Jasmine, he had also continued using her phone and SIM card to pretend she was still alive. Authorities determined that Jason accessed Jasmine's bank accounts, posted fake updates on her social media pages, and sent numerous text messages pretending to be her after she was already dead. Which is a whole different level of disturbing, because that was no longer panic. That was someone trying to control the entire narrative after the crime. And while Jasmine was missing, Jason continued talking to other women on Tinder. In one message sent to a woman he matched with on the app, Jason wrote, "I guess we're dating now."
He didn't do it with premeditation. This is a voluntary manslaughter case. Voluntary manslaughter is the intentional or knowing killing of another in a state of passion produced by adequate provocation, sufficient to lead a reasonable person to act in an unreasonable manner.
He did not claim Jason was innocent. He did not deny that Jason killed Jasmine Pace. Instead, the defense openly admitted that Jason had killed her, but argued that this was not a premeditated murder. They wanted the jury to view it as voluntary manslaughter, meaning a killing committed in the heat of passion or during a loss of emotional control, which is a very different argument, because the state of Tennessee was not seeking the death penalty in this case. But if convicted of first-degree premeditated murder, Jason Chen would face a life sentence with almost no realistic chance of release. So at this point, the defense strategy was basically down to one path: not trying to prove Jason innocent, but trying to convince the jury that Jasmine's killing had not been planned in advance. He did not claim Jason was innocent. He did not deny that Jason killed Jasmine Pace. Instead, the defense openly admitted that Jason had killed her, but argued that this was not a premeditated murder. They wanted the jury to view it as voluntary manslaughter, meaning a killing committed in the heat of passion or during a loss of emotional control, which is a very different argument, because the state of Tennessee was not seeking the death penalty in this case. But if convicted of first-degree premeditated murder, Jason Chen would face a life sentence with almost no realistic chance of release. So at this point, the defense strategy was basically down to one path: not trying to prove Jason innocent, but trying to convince the jury that Jasmine's killing had not been planned in advance.
This is the suitcase in which Jason Chen stuffed the 98-pound body of Jasmine Pace. That's where I'm going to begin this story. Except, I want you to remember that as you hear evidence in the next week, that this is not a story like the one that you read in a novel where you have to imagine the appearances of characters. The evidence that you will hear in this case is very real. The evidence will not require that you use your imagination. Jasmine Pace was very real. And Jason Chen really killed her.
To reduce this case from first-degree murder to voluntary manslaughter, the defense needed to convince the jury that Jason had not planned to kill Jasmine, that everything happened during a sudden emotional outburst. Their theory went like this. That night, Jason and Jasmine were drinking wine inside the apartment. When Jasmine walked into the kitchen to grab another bottle, she supposedly heard repeated Tinder notifications going off on Jason's phone, and then the argument started. According to the defense, Jasmine became so angry that she attacked Jason with a broken wine glass. And Jason? They claimed he simply reacted on instinct. Earlier that evening, Jason had allegedly used a kitchen knife to cut the seal off a wine bottle in the bedroom and left the knife on the nightstand. When Jasmine allegedly rushed toward him during the confrontation, Jason supposedly grabbed the nearest knife in a state of panic.
Jason sees the knife and he reacts and he stabs. He blacked out. Your heart is racing. You're in that fight or flight response.
Katrina Bean.
That was the defense theory, which is a very hard sell, because prosecutors did not view this case as an argument that spiraled out of control. They viewed it as a murder followed by a cleanup operation. More than 60 stab wounds, a cleaned crime scene, fake text messages, fake Facebook posts, Jasmine's phone and SIM card being used after her death, the suitcase, Suck Creek Road. That was far too much happening after the attack for prosecutors to believe this was simply a few minutes of lost emotional control. And honestly, many people following the trial felt the same way. Defense attorney Josh Weiss also attempted to explain the handcuffs found on Jasmine's body. According to the defense, Jason Chen panicked after the stabbing. They claimed he used the handcuffs only to force Jasmine's body into the trash bags and suitcase before removing her from the apartment. Throughout the trial, prosecutors carefully reconstructed the entire timeline of the crime using surveillance footage, phone data from both Jason and Jasmine, and testimony from residents living in the Tremont Street apartment complex. And the more evidence that surfaced, the harder the voluntary manslaughter story became to believe. One of the key witnesses was Courtney Brewer, a neighbor living in the building. She testified that she heard a loud argument shortly after 2 a.m. during the night of November 22nd into the early morning of November 23rd.
The night of November the 22nd and in the early hours of November the 23rd, was there an incident that you can recall?
Yes, I was woken up in the middle of the night by a loud scream.
Can you kind of take us, and you can go slowly through, the events that woke you up and everything that you heard from that point until you didn't hear it?
There was a scream that startled me out of my sleep. I checked my phone to see the time because I was going to call 911. It was around 2 a.m. There was a voice that was screaming words. The words I couldn't understand fully.
Was it a male voice or female?
A female voice. And then there sounded, assuming that the apartment above mine is laid out the same as mine, there sounded like chasing, a lot of footsteps going across towards the front door.
One person's footsteps or two footsteps?
It sounded like multiple.
You said towards the front door. Was it towards the front door or towards the bedroom?
Towards the front door because I was in the bedroom when I heard it.
You had said that you heard a scream. Can you describe the scream?
Distressed, not quite angry, emphatic.
Reconstructing exactly what happened inside Jason Chen's apartment that night depended almost entirely on the crime scene itself. And that is also where everything became incredibly messy. Because before police officially secured the apartment, Jason had hours to clean up. He used multiple cleaning products, threw away clothing, discarded the white sneakers, and according to prosecutors, the remaining piece of the broken knife also disappeared. But that was not the only problem. The apartment had also been entered multiple times by Katrina Pace, now Katrina Bean, before the official search warrant was executed. In a desperate attempt to find clues about her daughter, she removed phones, electronic devices, notebooks, and several other items from the apartment. The defense later used that fact heavily during trial. They argued that the crime scene may have been contaminated, meaning altered or disturbed before forensic investigators could fully process it.
But you bring into an apartment.
To find my daughter? Yes.
You would lie to police.
I was just trying to find my daughter.
You would perjure yourself under oath.
I haven't perjured myself.
The defense later called their own crime scene expert to testify, and their strategy was pretty clear. If they could not break the prosecution's timeline, they would try to undermine the reliability of the crime scene itself. The expert walked the jury through multiple changes inside the apartment between the moment police were first called and the point when the scene was officially photographed, processed, and evidence was collected. Furniture had been moved. Some items had already been removed from the apartment. Multiple people had entered the scene before the forensic team fully secured the area. The defense even raised the question of whether certain pieces of evidence could have been altered, or in a more extreme argument, possibly planted. Another detail the defense tried to emphasize came from Travis Pace's testimony. He stated that he did not remember seeing the knife on the bed when he and Katrina first entered the apartment searching for Jasmine. And that was exactly what the defense wanted the jury thinking about. Was the crime scene still truly intact by the time police officially processed it? But the problem with that argument was, even if the scene had been partially disturbed, the digital evidence was still incredibly difficult to explain away in any innocent light for Jason Chen. Because the surveillance footage, phone data, Tinder messages, fake Facebook posts, and the entire post-crime timeline all continued pointing back to the same person.
And then this past Monday, you were in this room when you saw Katrina Pace testify on that stand, right? Were any of those statements true?
We remember it differently.
You heard Katrina testify that she went back into the apartment multiple times after that night, or after that morning?
I heard that.
Were you with her those times?
I was there.
You know what she did in the apartment during those times? Your ex-wife, Katrina Pace, does she have a reputation for being honest? Mr. Pace, in your opinion, does Katrina Pace, she a honest person?
I don't have an opinion.
If the defense tried to make the jury doubt the crime scene, the autopsy findings were a completely different matter. Because according to prosecutors, Jasmine's body told a very clear story. Dr. Stephen Cogswell testified in court that Jasmine suffered a horrifying total of 60 stab wounds, most concentrated around the left side of her chest and neck. The extensive defensive wounds on her left hand and arm showed that she had desperately tried to shield herself during the attack. The medical examiner concluded that the stabbing occurred first, and only after Jasmine had already died did Jason Chen use standard handcuffs to bind her limbs together, forcing her body into a fetal position so it could fit inside the suitcase used to dispose of her remains.
If someone were stabbing a person 60 times, we would expect them to try to get away. But what if they can't? What if they can't because their right hand is chained to their right leg, their left leg chained to their right elbow? Makes it difficult to run. Makes it difficult to do anything. Dr. Cogswell told you that she was stabbed in the fetal position 60 times. We'd also expect that if she's being attacked on the right side of her body, that she might try to defend herself with both hands. There should be injuries on both hands. Instead, what we have are injuries to the left hand, no significant injuries to the right hand. That's consistent with her being in the fetal position with a hand unable to move on the ground. It's consistent with exactly what we see on the screen right there, her being handcuffed.
Dr. Stephen Cogswell then dismantled another major part of Jason Chen's story. There was no evidence that Jasmine had consumed alcohol before her death. No wine. No alcohol level consistent with drinking for hours like the defense described. Because Jason's entire version of events began with the two of them drinking wine, arguing, and then things spiraling out of control. Then came the Tinder notifications. Jason claimed Jasmine became enraged after hearing his phone repeatedly going off with Tinder alerts. That was supposedly the provocation that turned the case into voluntary manslaughter instead of premeditated murder. It was completely fabricated. When Tennessee digital forensic experts examined the app data, they confirmed Jason had not received a single Tinder notification that entire day. Not one. Right there in court, Jason's entire crime of passion narrative began collapsing in front of the jury. Because if there was no alcohol, no Tinder notifications, no argument unfolding the way Jason described, then what exactly was left of the defense? Jason Chen ultimately chose not to testify. After 6 days of evidence presentation, even the defense team appeared to quietly abandon their original story. Instead, they clung to one final forensic detail: that Jasmine's wrists did not show the level of restraint markings they would have expected if she had still been alive when the handcuffs were applied. The defense still tried to create doubt around whether Jasmine had been handcuffed while still alive. Their crime scene expert pointed to a stain on the bedsheet, something he claimed could possibly be Jasmine's bloody handprint. The implication from the defense was pretty clear. If Jasmine had still been able to place her hand on the bed to support herself, then maybe she had not yet been restrained at that moment. But the problem was, he could not actually confirm that it was a handprint. The stain had never been scientifically tested, and under cross-examination from prosecutors, the expert ultimately had to admit exactly that, which basically killed the point. Things became even worse for the defense because they had almost no reasonable explanation for the rest of the state's evidence. Because beyond the handcuffs, there was another enormous problem: more than 60 stab wounds. According to prosecutors, the sheer number of injuries showed Jason had far too many opportunities to stop. Too much time to think. Too much time to realize exactly what he was doing. But the attack continued anyway. And that became one of the prosecution's strongest arguments for premeditation: intent and conscious decision-making. During closing arguments, prosecutor Cody Womp brought the jury back to the single most critical moment in the entire case: 2:11 a.m. That was when Courtney Brewer heard running toward the apartment door and chaos erupting inside the unit. 7 minutes later, at 2:18 a.m., Jasmine's phone sent the live location pin to her mother. 7 minutes.
Courtney was 2:11 a.m. The phone location to her mom was 2:18. 7 minutes. She screamed. Things happened. She was able to know she was in enough danger that she needed to send her mother her location. It wasn't fast. It wasn't fast at all, and we know that. 2:11 is 7 minutes from 2:18. It wasn't fast. She knew she was in danger. She tried to get out of the door, and Courtney told you that she heard a door slam. Jasmine knew she was in trouble. She had time to use her phone before he started killing her.
After closing arguments, the jury left the courtroom at around 4:15 p.m. to begin deliberations. Just over an hour later, shortly after 5 p.m., they returned with a verdict.
With respect to count 1 of presentment 315228, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Chen, guilty of first-degree premeditated murder.
This is an emotional verdict. Everyone needs to maintain decorum, please.
One juror later revealed that the multiple times Jasmine's family entered the apartment scene had almost no impact on the jury's final decision. Because according to the juror, every person who walked into that room or apartment played some part in contaminating it. But that honestly did not matter much during our deliberations because we already knew he admitted to killing her. During the sentencing phase, the jury now faced one final decision. Should Jason Chen ever be given the possibility of one day walking free from prison? And that was when Jason's mother stepped up to the podium to speak.
He is a very good child. He is not a bad person. I pray that lead to the judge and the jury to give him a chance so that he can go home and restart his life.
Is there anything that you want to say to Jasmine Pace's family?
那么你跟 Jasmine Pace 他的家人，你要跟他们讲什么呢？我就是想跟他们父母讲，我孩子犯错了，他这已经也受到了惩罚，希望他的父母给他一个在里面改造一个。 重新做人，有个机会出来，改造后出来有个希望，有一天也能见到我们父母。我们父母来到美国，只是不会因为真的很辛苦培养一个孩子，我们真的很辛苦。希望他们会家人给我们一个，给他孩子一个。 给我还是一个改不到的机会，有一天出来。Her family will give him, my son, a chance to be out one day and a chance to restart his life. Because it is very, very difficult in a country that we have to, without knowing English, we have to raise children in very difficult circumstances, and he is a good person, he's not a bad person. We wish that her family would allow him a chance to relive his life and improve his situation.
Defense attorney Josh Weiss then delivered one final plea to the jury.
By allowing Jason the possibility of parole, we affirm our society's belief that the most condemned among us can strive to rebuild their humanity. You're not tasked with forgiving Jason Chen or even excusing his actions. You are tasked with ensuring justice, a justice tempered with mercy. Not because Jason deserves it, but because it's a reflection of our humanity as a whole. I ask that, and we ask, that you give Jason the opportunity, as a 73-year-old man, to seek this redemption. Let him spend the next 5 decades behind bars, reflecting on the choices that he made when he was 22 years old.
On January 21st, 2025, the jury convicted Jason Chen, and the Hamilton County Court sentenced him to life in prison, with the possibility of parole for first-degree murder. Under Tennessee law, Jason will be required to serve a minimum of 51 consecutive years before he is even eligible to request parole consideration. For the abuse of a corpse charge, he received an additional maximum sentence of 2 years. But Judge Amanda Boyd Morona ordered that sentence to run concurrently with the life sentence. Which means by the time Jason Chen has his very first chance to ever walk out of prison, he will already be an old man in his 70s.
With respect to the sentence of the defendant, Jason Chen, on count 1 of presentment 315228, we, the jury, do unanimously find the following statutory aggravating circumstances beyond a reasonable doubt, in that the murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and that it involved torture or serious physical abuse beyond that necessary to produce death, and do unanimously agree that the defendant's sentence shall be life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
And to this day, Jason Chen still has not escaped that sentence. In May 2025, the trial judge officially issued a ruling completely denying the defense's motion for a new trial, leaving both the guilty verdict and life sentence fully intact. At this point, the final major legal path remaining for Jason Chen is continuing the appeals process through Tennessee's higher courts. A 22-year-old woman left home on the night before Thanksgiving and never came back again. And the most terrifying part of this case was not just the brutality of the crime itself. It was the way Jason Chen tried to control everything afterward. From fake text messages and fake Facebook posts to making Jasmine's family believe she was still alive. And this case is also a very real reminder that sometimes the warning signs do not come from strangers hiding in the dark, but from the people standing closest to us. In the end, security cameras, phone data, and forensic evidence told the truth Jasmine no longer had the chance to tell herself. In the case of Jasmine Pace, social media and digital evidence helped police quickly uncover the perpetrator's face just days after her disappearance. Modern technology doesn't allow crimes to be concealed for too long. However, for those who regularly watch true crime documentaries, we know that there are scenarios far more terrifying and dark. A person completely vanishes from the world without a trace, and it takes 2 years for people to realize their absence and begin searching. This is the long-lasting tragedy of Erica Parsons, a poor girl hidden from the world by her own devious guardians.
She has no soul. She is a body that is just there.
On February 24th, 1998, Erica was born in North Carolina, the result of a relationship between Carolyn Parsons and Billy Dean Goodman. At the time, Carolyn was separated from her husband and struggling to raise 3 young children in extreme poverty. Having grown up in orphanages and homeless shelters, Carolyn understood the cost of going without. Hoping to give her daughter a stable future, she entrusted Erica to Sandy and Casey Parsons, relatives she trusted completely. Carolyn wanted to save her child from the cycle of poverty, but she could not have imagined that this decision would place Erica in the hands of predators posing as adoptive parents. When police began questioning Erica's disappearance, Sandy and Casey Parsons gave a response that was chillingly calm. They claimed Erica had moved to live with her biological grandmother, a woman named Nan, in Asheville. To reinforce the lie, Sandy and Casey Parsons even staged stories about driving her to visit family. During that entire time, they continued to present themselves on paper as devoted adoptive parents. Every month, they calmly endorsed and collected the assistance checks on Erica's behalf, pocketing about $600 a month in taxpayer money. Just one day after Erica Parsons was reported missing, the two youngest children in the Parsons household were removed from the home in Rowan County. By August 6, 2013, the Rowan County Sheriff's Office publicly confirmed that Casey and Sandy Parsons were not cooperating with the investigation. In missing child cases, avoidance from guardians is always a signal that investigators must tighten their focus. 6 days later, Carolyn Parsons, Erica's biological mother, returned from New Orleans to speak directly with police. She said she had continued receiving updates through Facebook during that time. But the last time she saw her daughter was on January 5, 2011. In an interview, she said, "I think about my visits with her almost every day. It plays over and over in my mind. My whole body goes numb. As a mother, I just hope she's alive somewhere. I just want to believe that one day she'll show up." About a month after Jamie reported Erica missing, the FBI was brought in to assist, working alongside local authorities. Search warrants were executed multiple times in August 2013, and the list of evidence collected showed the investigation was far from small. Dozens of items were removed from the home. Among them was a plastic bag containing magazines about John Benet Ramsey and a book about that case, with margin notes referencing home renovations. The presence of these materials in the evidence list drew attention, since John Benet Ramsey's case is one of the most well-known unsolved child cases in the country. In addition, a section of drywall inside a closet was cut out and removed after reddish stains were observed on the surface. Baseboards in the same area were also taken out and sent for forensic testing. A pair of jeans with similar reddish stains was seized for examination. 1 week after the first round of searches, investigators announced a new set of search warrants. This time, the location was a storage building owned by Sandy Parsons. The evidence collected from that site included vacuum cleaner components, a videotape, school records, a hammer, and teeth. Each item was listed not to shock, but because investigators believed it held potential evidentiary value and required analysis. In the new warrant documents, investigators reiterated findings from the initial search. They stated clearly that no evidence was found indicating Erica Parsons was still living in the home, nor were there signs that her bedroom or personal living space remained inside the house. That was a legal conclusion, and it raised a direct question. If Erica had not been present in the home for a long time, why was her disappearance not reported for nearly 2 years? Police said the evidence they gathered suggested Casey and Sandy acted as though they knew Erica was not coming back. At the same time, investigators were pursuing physical evidence, another branch of the case open: finances. Authorities suspected the family had continued receiving financial assistance intended for Erica during the period when she was no longer living with them. A search warrant related to financial records was filed in court. In the warrant application, investigators wrote, "It is believed that the continued desire to utilize the funds, proceeds, or financial assistance intended for the care or benefit of Erica Lynn Parsons resulted in the delay or outright denial to report Erica Lynn Parsons missing, and probable cause to believe that a crime, obtaining property by false pretenses, has occurred." To me, there is an undeniable fact. The Parsons family clearly benefited financially in Erica's name. I believe this aspect was not just an ordinary fraud case. It deserves closer examination to fully understand the cold calculation of those willing to turn a child into a living paycheck. As investigators expanded the financial inquiry, they traced bank accounts used by Casey and Sandy Parsons. These accounts were opened at Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and SunTrust Bank. Records showed that Erica had been adopted through the public foster system. Because she had additional needs, the family qualified to receive more than $600 per month from the Department of Social Services to support her care. The couple's attorney argued that they were still entitled to those payments because they remained Erica's legal guardians. According to the defense, legally, Erica was still in their custody. But the real question was not about legal status. The question was this: if Erica truly had not been in the home since 2011, why was no official report ever filed with authorities? The defense responded that Casey and Sandy did not consider Erica missing. According to them, she had been left with her grandmother. The problem was that when investigators examined that claim, they found no evidence that this grandmother even existed at the time Erica was supposedly sent away. When investigators began reviewing the past of Casey and Sandy Parsons, an important detail surfaced. This was not the first time the family had drawn attention. Family members had previously contacted the Department of Social Services. In March 2002, DSS investigated allegations of abuse involving Erica. At that time, the findings were insufficient to support legal action. Records noted that Erica did not appear fearful of her caregivers during the assessment. But more than a decade later, when the disappearance was re-examined, investigators spoke with several family members. Some described a troubling home environment for Erica. Casey flatly denied those claims. "My family is lying. My mother told my kids to say that," she told investigators. The couple's attorney emphasized that allegations from relatives could not be treated as fact unless independently verified. According to the defense, Casey and Sandy were doing everything they could to locate Erica, and the negative accounts stemmed from internal family conflict. Another detail entered the record: homeschooling. Casey was the one teaching the children at home. Officials with the North Carolina Division of Non-Public Education confirmed that standardized test results and attendance records had been submitted for the children in the household. However, they could not confirm whether any documents related to Erica were included in those records. When asked about the claim that Erica was living with her biological grandmother, Casey said she had been contacted by the woman through Facebook. But the account was later deactivated, and no contact information was provided to verify the story. On January 30th, 2014, the FBI announced a reward of $25,000 for information leading to Erica Parsons' location. The Rowan County Sheriff's Office offered a separate reward, and prevent child abuse. Rowan added another $5,000. The total reward was more than just a number. It signaled that the case had moved to the federal level. Nearly a year after Erica was reported missing, the investigation took a major turn. Federal agents executed arrest warrants at the Parsons home. Casey and Sandy Parsons were taken into custody and charged in Fayetteville, North Carolina, with 76 counts tied to alleged conduct between February 2010 and August 2013. The charges were not directly related to Erica's disappearance. Instead, they focused on financial crimes: theft of government funds, mail fraud, tax fraud, conspiracy to defraud the government, and identity theft. According to the indictment, the couple was accused of continuing to collect government benefits, including adoption assistance, Medicaid, Social Security, and food assistance for a dependent who was no longer living with them. According to the federal indictment, Casey Parsons was also accused of fraudulently using other people's identities to claim them as dependents and of providing false information on federal tax filings. While awaiting trial on the 76 counts related to theft and fraud, Casey and Sandy were not granted full freedom. They were placed under strict supervision by law enforcement. Electronic monitoring devices were fitted on them. They were required to meet regularly with a pretrial services officer. One of the conditions of their release required them to remain in eastern North Carolina and to refrain from violating any laws. As the court proceedings on the fraud charges moved forward, testimony began from several family members, including Jamie Parsons, Casey Parsons, and Casey's sister, Robin. Although the trial focused on financial offenses, the scope of testimony quickly expanded to the living conditions of Erica Parsons. Robin testified that she had once been asked to monitor Erica for a period of time because Casey said the girl might be unsafe if left alone. Robin described how Erica often appeared with multiple bruises and signs of injury on her body. She said Casey showed intense anger whenever she looked at Erica. Jamie gave similar testimony. He said Erica was restricted from using the bathroom and was forced to eat food meant for pets or food from the trash, and repeatedly excluded from family activities. According to him, Erica was often not given enough food for long periods of time and had to drink water from a pet bowl or from the bathroom sink. Jamie testified that Erica was kept in a closet for long periods of time. If she could not control her bodily needs because she was being kept in that space, the punishment would continue. He also said that Erica's fingers had been bent during discipline. According to testimony in court, Erica Parsons was not allowed to sleep in a bed. She did not have her own bed and often had to sleep on the floor. Jamie testified that there was one time when Casey placed Erica's hand on a hot stove surface, leaving burns on her hand. He also admitted in court that he and some of his siblings participated in harming Erica over the years, beginning when she was very young. Jamie testified that there was one time when he injured Erica's arm before stopping. Jamie's sister, Brooke, told investigators that after that incident, Casey did not take Erica to a medical facility. Instead, she instructed the children to go to a Walmart store to purchase first aid supplies so they could stabilize Erica's arm at home. Family members testified that Erica's arm later showed signs of not healing properly. In child victim cases, the failure to seek medical care when necessary is often considered one of the clearest signs that the protective system within the family has broken down. On the witness stand, Jamie testified that his mother instructed Sadie and Toby to pull Erica's hair if she refused to play with them. He said Casey frequently encouraged the children to harm Erica and personally used physical punishment when the girl did not comply. Jamie testified that Casey had used a belt as a form of discipline against Erica. He also said Sandy struck Erica in the head multiple times. According to the testimony, Erica had a clearly visible patch of thinning hair, believed to be the result of repeated injuries. Sadie, who was 12 at the time, told investigators that she had tried to secretly bring food to Erica. She said Erica was often kept in a closet in the bathroom or in Brooke's room. Sadie also said there was one time when Casey applied force to Erica's neck, causing Erica to have trouble breathing. In addition, if Erica received any gifts, those items were usually taken back as soon as the giver left. In a statement read in court by the district attorney, Sandy once said that no one would be able to find Erica because Casey was smarter than the FBI. Taken together, these accounts describe an environment where a child had no ability to protect herself. According to the siblings, in the final week before she was last seen, Erica Parsons appeared severely weakened. They said she had sunken eyes, pale skin, and multiple signs of injury on her body. Jamie testified that the last time he saw Erica, she looked extremely weak. Erica told him she did not feel well and was having trouble breathing. According to Jamie, when he reported this, Casey responded by telling Erica to go back to the corner and ignored what she had said. Jamie also testified that the next morning, when he woke up, the adoptive parents were not home and only returned later that day. When they came back, Sandy was quiet and appeared tense, while Casey acted normal. When Jamie asked where Erica was, he was told that she had been taken to live with her grandmother. In court, prosecutor Anand Ramaswamy cited Jamie's testimony and presented the prosecution's position. He believed Erica had died and that there was an agreement between Casey and Sandy not to report the death. Sandy's defense argued that poor parenting does not automatically equal criminal conduct. His attorney emphasized that much of the case relied on the testimony of Jamie Parsons. Jamie admitted that in February 2013, he told his grandmother, Shirley, that he had not seen Erica for some time. However, it was not until 5 months later that an official missing persons report was filed. That delay became a significant detail in the record. Meanwhile, Scott, Sandy's brother, told investigators that Jamie had a tendency to lie and was not reliable. That made the overall testimony more complicated. But Shirley, Casey's mother, offered a different perspective. She said the last time she saw Erica Parsons was during the 2011 holiday season. Shirley said that when Erica was younger, she had seen signs of injury on her body, including bruising around her hip and around her eyes. According to her, Casey blamed Jamie at the time. Shirley testified that she and her husband, James, had suspected their daughter of causing harm to Erica, but ultimately did not intervene. In a statement, she said she had once witnessed Casey apply force to Erica's neck, causing her to have difficulty breathing during an angry outburst. James immediately grabbed his daughter's arm and told her to stop before the couple left in a tense state. The warning signs had appeared years earlier, and those signs were never fully addressed. Shirley also told the court that Erica Parsons' hands showed clear signs of injury. According to her, the girl's fingers appeared crooked and not naturally straight. This matched Jamie's earlier testimony, in which he said his mother had once applied force to Erica's fingers as a form of punishment. Robin also noticed that Erica's hand showed signs of abnormality and suspected that her fingers may have been injured but were not properly treated. When questioned, Casey claimed the condition was caused by arthritis. Robin further testified that Casey frequently struck Erica and forced her to stand facing the corner for extended periods as punishment. Prosecutors introduced photographs into evidence showing Erica standing in the corner on 5 separate occasions. In 2002, a woman named Amy Miller and her husband contacted Casey Parsons through a surrogacy website. After communicating and meeting in person, they agreed that Casey would carry a child for them. Amy later said that Casey presented herself as a devout, calm, and trustworthy woman. Casey's decision to adopt Erica Parsons and keep her within the family made Amy feel even more confident. According to Amy, Casey often spoke of Erica as an important part of her life. The two parties agreed on a payment of $10,000 to be distributed in monthly installments. Casey said the money should be donated to her church as a charitable contribution. However, she also stated that she needed to purchase a washer and dryer, and the initial payments were used for personal expenses. After some time, Casey informed Amy that the pregnancy had ended and the baby had not survived. Amy said that after delivering that message, Casey changed her phone number, changed her email, and cut off all contact. According to Amy, Casey also told her that she did not deserve to have children. But later court records showed that Casey had not lost the baby. The child was born healthy. According to records presented in court, the Parsons family approached Robin and claimed that the Miller family no longer wanted the baby born from the surrogacy agreement. They offered to transfer the child to Robin for $10,000. Robin then searched for information online and was able to contact Amy Miller. Amy immediately notified law enforcement, which ultimately led to her being reunited with her child. Amy told the media that Casey had presented herself as kind and trustworthy, but after everything that happened, she realized she had been manipulated. Amy described the experience as a severe crisis for her family. Following the federal investigation, Casey Parsons pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including 5 counts of mail fraud, 1 count of aggravated identity theft, 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the government, 4 counts of wire fraud, and 4 counts related to aiding in the preparation of fraudulent tax returns. She was sentenced to 120 months in prison, 3 years of supervised release after completing her sentence, ordered to pay restitution of $41,817, and assessed a special fee of $1,500. Sandy Parsons was also sentenced after trial. The jury deliberated for less than 5 hours before finding him guilty on 43 counts, including theft of government funds, mail fraud, aggravated identity theft, making false statements to a federal agent, and conspiracy to defraud the government. He was sentenced to 96 months in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and ordered to pay restitution of $1,624,300. With everything presented in the courtroom, from the testimony of siblings and family witnesses to financial records and physical evidence, the judge made a clear statement at sentencing. He said that based on all the evidence before the court, the likelihood that Erica Parsons was still alive was almost non-existent. According to the judge, the facts presented formed an overwhelming picture that she was no longer alive. He repeated that, based on the totality of the evidence, the possibility that Erica Parsons was still living was nearly non-existent. According to the judge, the record created an overwhelming conclusion that she was gone. You and your husband did a terrible, terrible thing to that little girl. I have sentenced nearly 1,000 people. I cannot think of a case that has troubled me more than this one. You carried out a plan to remove that child. You covered up your cruel actions. You are morally corrupt. At sentencing, the judge spoke directly to Casey Parsons. He said he accepted nearly all of the testimony regarding the way Erica had been mistreated over the years. In his view, what family members presented in court was credible. He also stated that testimony from government witnesses was consistent and truthful. The judge described the nature of the offenses as cruel. He said the story that Erica was living with someone named Nan was an unconvincing fabrication. He emphasized that Erica was a child with no ability to protect herself, a little girl who simply wanted care and love. I have sentenced thousands of people over the years, he told the couple, but no case I have ever handled has troubled me like this one.
10 years for one, 12 years for the other. Even though he says he has no reasons to believe my child to be alive, I will go ahead, as hard as this is for me to say, I have not made any inclinations one way or the other since this report came out. My heart, my gut, and my soul tell me my child is no longer alive. But I want media, everybody who supports, loves, and prays for Erica and myself to understand that does not mean I give up. That does not mean I quit searching. That does not mean that I want anybody to give up until there is a body, until the DNA or whatever for sure comes from the FBI that she is passed away. Don't give up looking. Don't give up praying. Don't give up hope.
It had been 5 years since Erica Parsons was reported missing. In May 2016, Brooke, the oldest daughter of Casey and Sandy, agreed to speak with the FBI. Until then, she had defended her parents. But this time, her statement shifted the direction of the investigation. Brooke said there was an incident when her mother forced her to stand outside on a hot day without shoes until the soles of her feet developed severe blisters. She described Erica's skin as pale and grayish, her body frail, with multiple untreated injuries. The details were not told with emotion. They were told as memories. A few months later, Brooke visited Sandy in prison. After that meeting, he said he would show law enforcement where to find Erica. On September 27, 2016, Rowan County Sheriff Kevin Oughton announced that after working with Sandy, authorities had identified a burial location. According to Sandy's statement, on December 17, 2011, Erica died inside the home. That evening, they still attended a holiday party. The next day, December 18th, Sandy said they drove to Pageland, South Carolina. This information came from Sandy's official statement to investigators, and from that moment, the 5-year missing persons case had an answer, even if it was not the one anyone wanted to hear. He also stated that Casey was the one who created the story about Nan to explain Erica's disappearance.
The skeletal human remains of Erica Parsons were discovered on Tuesday. Law enforcement sources telling our NBC affiliate WCNC that her remains were found in Chesterfield County, South Carolina, some 40 miles southeast of Charlotte. Now, Erica was last seen in 2011 when she was just 13 years old, but family didn't report her missing until 2013, nearly a year and a half later.
Sandy stopped and pointed toward a remote wooded area. It was there, beneath a thin layer of soil in a shallow grave. In December 2016, investigator Chad Moose received direct contact from Casey Parsons. She said she wanted to provide additional information. According to Casey, on the day of the incident, Erica said she did not want to die. Casey stated that she later found Erica lying motionless on the living room floor, on a blanket. She said she turned the girl over but received no response. However, in later conversations, multiple versions of the story emerged regarding how the event allegedly occurred. Casey said that after discovering Erica was no longer breathing, they placed her in a container. Casey's debit card records showed that bleach had been purchased at a Walmart store on December 5th. She also admitted to using a belt to strike Erica. Casey said she did not seek medical care for Erica because she feared her sister, Robin, would report the situation to the Department of Social Services.
Dear friends, Erica lost 2 years of her life to neglect and lies, and an entire lifetime without truly being loved. Let's leave a heart or a white dove in the comments right now. Every symbol you leave is like a small candle, illuminating Erica's soul and a promise that we will never let another child be so alone again. And wherever she is now, we hope she is finally surrounded by peace and love.
On February 25th, 2017, at First Baptist Church, family members, local residents, and law enforcement officers attended the funeral of Erica Parsons. The day before would have been her birthday. Nearly a year after her remains were returned to the family, the official autopsy results were released. Earlier, Sheriff Kevin Oughton had stated that investigators would wait for the forensic findings before pursuing additional charges. When the report was returned, its contents were decisive. The official conclusion listed the manner of death as homicide due to violence by an undetermined means. The forensic report showed that Erica had multiple injuries. These included fractures to the upper right arm, the bone connecting the arm to the collarbone, one finger, the jaw, the nasal bone, the left shin, and 7 ribs, some of which showed evidence of having been broken more than once. The record also noted that she had signs of spina bifida occulta. Erica was malnourished, had low bone density, and was developmentally delayed for her age. One tooth was missing, and several others showed signs of previous fractures. The report did more than state a cause of death. It documented a history of repeated trauma on the body of a 13-year-old child. The autopsy also raised the possibility that Erica may have experienced untreated kidney failure, sepsis, or some form of toxic exposure. However, because of the extent of the injuries, the exact cause could not be determined with absolute certainty. A medical examiner wrote in the report, "Given the history of physical abuse and the injuries documented at autopsy, we cannot rule out death due to blunt force trauma." Meanwhile, Carolyn, Erica's biological mother, said she was grateful that her daughter was finally found after Sandy revealed the burial location. However, she emphasized that this cooperation did not mean innocence. "He stood behind it and supported every lie," Carolyn said. After many years, the forensic truth has been documented in writing. But legal accountability still lies ahead.
We've learned her adoptive parents, Sandy and Casey Parsons, will be charged with first-degree murder. The Parsons have always denied they had anything to do with the disappearance of the little girl.
Sheriff Kevin Otten, who announced the indictments here today, said there were times during the investigation he thought this day would never come. But he did, because he said investigators never gave up.
We just did not want to leave a little girl out there. We wanted to bring her home.
Now the Parsons will be brought back to Salisbury to face charges in her death.
There are people that think the Parsons should have already been hung on the square, and they'll have their day in court, and we'll let the jury decide their fate.
In the end, both Sandy and Casey Parsons were indicted on serious charges: first-degree murder, felony child abuse resulting in serious injury, concealment of death, and obstruction of justice. According to the indictment, the two were alleged to have intentionally and deliberately decomposed and disfigured the remains of Erica Lynn Parsons through various means. Those words were not emotional descriptions. They were legal language written into a criminal indictment. And when they were read aloud in the courtroom, the room fell silent. As Sheriff Kevin Otten said, the case weighed heavily on everyone involved, from investigators and prosecutors to the family and the community. I've been here 30 years, and some of my investigators have been here a long time. And we felt that if we didn't find that little girl and bring these people to justice, then ultimately we would have failed in our careers. This case has weighed on us heavily. We are very proud to be where we are today.
All right, well, in other news this afternoon, the adoptive parents of a North Carolina teen found dead years after being reported missing, well, they will have separate trials. Sandy and Casey Parsons face multiple charges, including first-degree murder. Their 13-year-old daughter, Erica, was last seen in 2011, but she was not reported missing for another 2 years. Sandy Parsons led authorities to that girl's body in South Carolina in 2016. Casey Parsons is set to stand trial in April of 2020. A trial date for his wife has not yet been set.
Today should have been Erica Lynn Parsons' 21st birthday. Instead, her biological family gathered at her gravesite in China Grove. Erica Parsons, allegedly murdered by her adopted parents back in 2011. Now, they both sit in jail waiting for their trials. A lot has happened in the past year in this case, and the family says that makes today a little different than years past.
Happy birthday to you.
It's a milestone for almost everyone, your 21st birthday. But for little Erica Parsons, she'll never get to experience that.
I should be getting off work, going home, getting dressed, taking my sister out for her very first drink.
Sunday afternoon, family and friends gathered here to place flowers and gifts.
I cried all the way up here.
For Erica's biological mother, Carolyn, she says this birthday's a little different considering what we've seen happen in the past year.
The fact that a court date was set for Casey, even though it's in 2020, has a huge impact on how I feel about things being done.
A trial date was set this month for Casey Parsons. Casey and Sandy Parsons, Erica's adoptive parents, are both charged in the child's death and could face the death penalty if found guilty.
And the two main family members are sitting where they deserve to be, I hope, for the rest of their lives.
But those two were not the focus today.
Erica is everybody's angel. Erica is everybody's story.
Erica's life and story have traveled across the nation, impacting some that never even met the little girl.
As long as we're breathing, Erica is never going to be forgotten again.
For the family, this date is difficult every year.
It's Erica's day, and she deserves every bit of this and more.
And as they wait for justice, they tell me they feel Erica's presence often, not just here at her grave.
But she's not here. You can spend time with her wherever you are, wherever you're going.
On August 2nd, 2019, Casey Parsons formally pleaded guilty to charges of child abuse and murder. The court sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder conviction.
I can't tell you why. I don't know why I did the stuff I did, and I'm sorry.
After years of denial, Casey Parsons openly admitted she abused, then murdered her adopted daughter, Erica Parsons.
I didn't have a steady home. I didn't have a steady job. Had I known then what I know now, I would have risked it. I would have took her different places every night.
Today, prosecutors shared testimony from Erica's sibling, who said Erica was choked, beaten, and neglected by Casey and Sandy.
Erica always smelled bad that his mom didn't let her take a bath. Erica had a lot of cuts and bruises and black eyes from mom hitting her.
Casey offered an apology before the judge sentenced her to life in prison with no parole on that murder charge.
And I want to say I'm sorry to God and to Erica.
She also admitted that many family members reached out to her trying to help her with Erica, but she says she pushed them away and eventually murdered that little girl that she was supposed to protect. She said family members tried to step in and protect Erica.
My parents and my sister reached out to me numerous times to help me. Numerous. I pushed them back. I would lie constantly to them.
In addition to the life sentence for the murder conviction, Casey Parsons received consecutive sentences for concealment of death, felony child abuse resulting in serious bodily injury, and obstruction of justice. The total time for these additional sentences was 23 years, to be served consecutively to the primary sentence.
My name is Carolyn Parsons. I am Erica Lynn Parsons' biological mother. I've said all along that Casey deserved life in prison versus the death sentence. I still 100% agree with that because their life in prison living, her life in prison living, will be worse than any death sentence she could ever get. I know as far as having her other children participate, I just cannot seem to understand how. I don't know why. But she did the one thing I wanted her to do. She at least said something. I don't know that I believe that she is sorry. I don't know that I believe that I didn't mean to. Some of it I had heard. Some of it I hadn't heard. I still completely believe that Casey Stone Parsons has no heart. She has no soul. She is a body that is just there. She is an individual who just functions. The only thing Casey gets is what Erica doesn't. She gets to live. But in return for living, she will probably be in solitary confinement. And every time she gets out, she gets to listen to people talk about her, listen to people whisper about her. She gets to wonder, am I going to make it back to my cell tonight? But when that judge made that last statement was, and you cannot be around children. Yee-haw! Casey loses her rights to watch her grandkids grow up. What an incredible final end for her.
Four months after Casey Parsons entered her guilty plea, Sandy Parsons also pleaded guilty to charges of obstruction of justice, child abuse, concealment of death, and second-degree murder for his role in Erica Parsons' death. Sandy was sentenced to a minimum of 33 years in prison. According to the court's calculation, he will be approximately 82 years old at the first point he becomes eligible for parole consideration. That morning, Sandy appeared before the court and formally entered his plea to the charges.
Parsons appeared in court this morning, pleading guilty to murder and other felony charges.
People may forgive me. I know God has. But I'll never forgive myself. I turned a blind eye to things Erica was going through, and I failed her as a dad.
Attorneys argued Sandy was manipulated and controlled by his wife, Casey. They said it was Casey who committed most of the abuse against Erica, locking her in a closet, starving and severely beating the girl. They say one day Casey told Sandy that Erica died and manipulated him into covering it up, burying her body in a South Carolina field and lying to police for years.
Sandy Parsons' role, as I stated, was substantially less than that of Casey Parsons. There is literally no evidence that Sandy Parsons personally intended to kill or seriously injure Erica Parsons.
They asked the judge for leniency in sentencing. Rather than the near 80 years he could have received, the judge sentenced him to a maximum of 43 years.
Erica's biological mother was in court today as well, getting to tell Sandy what she thought of him.
I stand by what I have said from day one, which is I used to love you, now I hate you. And he got to hear that today.
The proceeding then came to a close. From the perspective of the perpetrators, there may have been words about fear, about concealment, about an accident or a misunderstanding. But court records documented a pattern of intentional conduct, abuse, neglect, concealment, and deception. Not a single moment of lost control, but years of deliberate choices. The Erica Parsons case shows this was not a brief mistake. It was a series of repeated decisions: failing to seek medical care, isolating a child from school, maintaining the fabricated story about Nan, continuing to collect benefits while she was no longer in the home, and concealing her death for years. In the courtroom, those actions were defined as crimes. But at its core, this was a prolonged child abuse case, where the adults responsible for protection became the source of harm. It is also a child victim case that raises questions about the child protection system, about listening to early warning signs, about the responsibility to report when something seems wrong, and about the risks when a child is completely isolated from the community. In any true crime documentary, a sentence marks the legal conclusion. But justice for Erica only has meaning when the community learns from it. Do not ignore bruises. Do not dismiss a cry for help. And do not stay silent when a child shows signs of harm. This video was created for educational and awareness purposes, focused on justice and child protection. It is not intended to exploit shock value or sensationalize the tragedy. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to follow our upcoming true crime documentaries, where every story is a voice for justice for children, for child protection, and for a world where every child is safe, loved, and heard.